Hey Exoticals, today I want to talk about how people get jealous when you're more powerful than them. So I guess I'll make this a part of the social climbing series. I talk a lot about social power dynamics on this channel, so if you're interested in that, be sure to subscribe and watch the rest of the videos. But a lot of people get jealous of Exoticals because at the end of the day, people feel like you have more power than them. That's what it is. And by the way, I'm not saying that this can't be true for women who are not Exoticals, but this video is specifically for my core audience. So if you don't like Exoticals, I don't know why you would be watching this video. Um, but one of the examples of power that you have is your beauty. Beauty is a form of social power, and that's why a lot of jealous mothers, they get mad once their daughters hit puberty because that little girl now has a source of power. Her beauty can be used to seduce. She can use her beauty to make money. She can use her beauty to go into real estate or get job opportunities or get some sort of stability. So, a lot of people, it's not just that they're threatened by your beauty, they're threatened by your power, and they're also threatened by the type of beauty that you have. So, for example, have you ever met a woman where maybe she's not jealous of everybody, but she is specifically triggered by women who have curly hair? She is specifically jealous by women with long hair, or, there's something that triggers her about a certain type of beauty. And also, have you ever noticed the type of people where they always want to call out your beauty enhancements? So they'll be like, oh, she's wearing fake eyelashes or she's wearing makeup. They're doing that because they're mad that your beauty enhancements have more power than their beauty enhancements. Everything you do in this world is to attain power, whether you want to admit it or not. Every job that you get, every promotion you're going for, every property that you're trying to buy, every relationship or marriage that you're trying to attain, everything that humans do in our society is because subconsciously everybody wants power. No one wants to feel powerless in this society. Nobody wants to feel like they're at the bottom. No one wants to feel like they're a slave. What is a slave? A slave is somebody who's at the bottom. A slave is someone who is powerless. They do all this work and they get nothing in return. They're constantly building other people up. They're allowing other people to build off of their backs, or they're being forced to allow other people to build off their backs. So everything people do in this world is to attain power. And I see a lot of dumbass bitches on YouTube, and they're talking about how trying to seek after power is like bad, or they're trying to throw it under the rug like nobody wants power. Everything I do is just so I can give to others. No, you're giving to others in hopes that you will receive good karma, and then the good karma is supposed to give you a sense of power. So every religion, every spirituality, and every action that every person on this earth takes is because at the end of the day, they want some sort of power. They want something in return. And that's not a bad thing. In fact, I feel like the Exoticals, we are the first sector on YouTube that has begun talking about social power and social climbing from a positive perspective. Most people in our society are liars and they try to pretend like they don't want social power. They just want to pretend like they're a good person. If that's actually virtue signaling. So being perceived as a good person, that actually gives you a sense of power. It gives you moral power. So everyone is seeking after some kind of social power, whether it's morals, whether it's their religion that they want to get power from, their spiritual beliefs. Have you ever seen all those spiritual women on TikTok where it's like they've got the incense going, they have their crystals and shit. So you're still seeking a sense of power. It's just a different kind of power. But when it comes to the exoticals, I've noticed that people get jealous when you are more powerful than them. So, when it comes to beauty enhancements, the reason that people call that out specifically with exoticals is because, think about it, when that woman wears a wig, she still looks average. When she has a full face of makeup, birthday makeup, whatever, she still looks average, and in some cases, she even looks worse. But then when you wear those exact same beauty enhancements, you're wearing the same cheap makeup, you're wearing the same basic beauty look, and now all of a sudden you look like a Barbie doll. You look like a beauty queen. The majority of women in this world are average, and that's okay. But this channel is for the Pretty Girl Club, so it's for women who are not average. Um, but people, they get mad when your methods of attaining power are more like successful. That's really what it is. The whole purpose of them putting on the beauty enhancements is they want to successfully be perceived in a certain way. So, by the way, that's a good question to ask yourselves, Exoticals. What kind of power do you want? How do you want to be perceived? So, like in my case, let's say I'm wearing beauty enhancements. Part of why I wear beauty enhancements is because I like being perceived as a princess. I like being treated as a princess. I like being perceived as spoiled and girly and like feminine and dainty and having the soft life or whatever. That's how I like to be perceived. I love being perceived as being hyper feminine. So everybody's not going to have the same goal as me, but that is a good question to ask yourself. What kind of power do you value the most? Do you want to use your beauty as power? Like in my case, I view my femininity as a sense of power. I enjoy being perceived as being very feminine. I like being perceived as being soft. So, have you ever been around women where they come from a hyper masculine culture? So, for example, maybe they were raised by a mother who is both feminine and masculine, so she's like androgynous. Or maybe she's a woman where she has a history of dating feminine men, so she's always in her masculine all the time. Have you ever noticed that it's usually those women who hate your femininity the most? So, like in my case, I view beauty enhancements as an expression of femininity. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not trying to convince anyone that anything is natural. So, different women have different reasons for wearing their beauty enhancements. Some women wear beauty enhancements to switch up their look or because, they're taking photos or something like that. They're going to a certain event. Other women wear beauty enhancements because they are not treated as humans. They get treated as subhuman in our society, and they feel like the wig is supposed to act as a shield and it's supposed to cause people to treat them better. So, I mean, one's not better than the other. I will say that's very difficult. If you think a wig is going to solve all your life problems, you're not very smart. And I think that's the issue as well. A lot of women do not have multiple sources of power. So remember how I talked about how as exoticals, you want to have multiple sources of micro validation. So for example, I talk about decentering men. Some of you guys, maybe you still want marriage or whatever, and I don't mind that as long as it's just a source of micro validation. You don't want to be male centered. So if somebody wants to compliment you, if he wants to buy you a drink or something, okay, that's fine. But I think that for some women, they don't have multiple streams of validation. They don't have multiple streams of power. And so they're hinging all of their social power on that lace front. They're hinging their social power on their chocolate skin tone or on their light skin tone or on their whiteness or whatever. So as exoticals, I think that one of our strengths is that we have multiple sources of power. So, what do you feel gives you power in this society? You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Like, you don't have to answer in the comment section. Just keep it a secret. But that is something to think about. What gives you a sense of power? What makes you feel powerful? Is it being beautiful? Because you should never depend on just one thing. And I think a lot of people, they make this argument and they'll be like, oh, the exoticals depend on their skin or their hair texture or their facial features to be powerful. That's actually false. That's actually false. Because even if you were to look at exoticals throughout the media, different people use different things to get ahead. And by the way, what does that even mean? Getting ahead. That's a very vague and general term. Oh, you're just trying to get ahead. Get ahead of what? Of black people? Get ahead of poverty? Get ahead of being single or being in a bad marriage? Or like, what exactly is it that you view as getting ahead? So that's something else to think about. But I feel like one of the best things that we can do as exoticals is to have multiple sources of power. So, you know how some people say, go where you're celebrated? I mean, you should do that too, but I also think it's good to go where you have the most power. So, if you're around a certain group of people and you don't have any pull, maybe you don't have any power at that job, or you don't have power in that friend group or whatever, if they're making you feel powerless, then you just get out of it. So this is why I will never be against exoticals who stay in the black community if that's what they want to do, because maybe that's where they have the most power. Maybe that's where they feel the most respected. By the way, power is really just pedestalization. And by the way, everybody in this world is seeking after a pedestal. Being a manager at a job, that's a pedestal. It is, because you're being promoted. That's why they call it a promotion. You are being promoted over others. You are being paid more than others. You have more perks and more benefits than others. So, generally speaking, people only get jealous when you are more powerful than them. People get the most pissed off about the privileges that they don't have. And that's why they try to tell young exoticals, don't go to school, don't go to college. Oh, just nobody cares about your degree. And then men will be like, we don't care about your degree. We don't care about your education. Of course, he doesn't care about your education because he's an uneducated dumbass himself. He couldn't afford to go to college, or he dropped out. He didn't have the tenacity. He didn't have the strength. He didn't have the consistency to finish college. And so, of course, he's going to discourage you from finishing college or finishing high school. So a lot of people say things because they just don't want you to have power. They want you to drop out of school so you can be with them, be in a relationship with them or whatever. And what a lot of people will do is they try to convince you that your privileges have no power. But guess what? You don't get to choose what privileges are helping me. I get to go out in this world and experiment with different privileges. So when it comes to beauty enhancements, that's another thing that I like about beauty enhancements. I get to experiment with different types of femininity. So sometimes I can wear my nails a certain color. Other times maybe I have glam makeup and then the next day I do like a no makeup look. So I think enhancements also can be about experimentation. You're experimenting with a different type of privilege. You're experimenting with a different type of social power. Most women are too cowardly to do that. I see a lot of women calling men cowards, and I agree, most men actually are cowards. But guess what? That's not exclusive to just men. I see a lot of women who are scary ass bitches as well. There are a lot of women who are cowards. They're too afraid to dress a certain way. They're too afraid to apply for the promotion. They're too afraid to start their social media page or to start their business because they're a coward. She's a scary ass bitch. She's a coward. She's extremely dusty. And so she's living her life in a social prison. She's living her life as a social slave. So she's slaving away, hoping that a white man will pick her. Or, she's living her life as a smeck slave for a white guy. She's living her life as a concubine to a man who doesn't want her. And by the way, let's talk about that. Why do some women live their lives as modern day concubines to Dusties? Why do they do that? Well, it's because that woman feels like her only sense of power is her vagina, or she feels like she has to sex her way into a relationship, or she has to sex her way into validation. One of her main sources of beauty is via her vagina. And so, like for me personally, the reason that I don't sleep with Dusties is not only because they're dusty, but it's also because I have other sources of beauty. I have multiple sources of beauty validation, but for some women, they don't. You know how they say you should have multiple streams of income and that's smart? Okay, so you're telling me that the entire world runs on capitalism. I should have multiple streams of income, but then suddenly when I talk about having multiple streams of validation or multiple streams of power, then suddenly I'm crazy? I'm crazy and I'm just this evil person because I want to have multiple streams of beauty? So, why is it that it's okay to have an abundance mindset when it comes to money? You can be abundant when it comes to every single thing, but then when I talk about having abundance of beauty or validation, suddenly people want to act like, oh, that's pointless. And it's like, ma'am, if you want to have a scarcity mindset, go for it. But if you hear other people on YouTube talking about social power, micro validation, having multiple sources of validation, or beauty, or different kinds of pretty privilege, attracting different types of social power, they got that from the exotical space. So I just want to make that clear. That's why a lot of them cannot create entire YouTube series on the same topic because they don't know what they're talking about because they're just copying and parroting what the exotical space says. Oh, and by the way, That's another sign that you have more power than somebody else. Have you ever had somebody copy you at work? They're copying how you dress. They're copying your personality. Personality copycats will always amaze me. It's like, do you view my personality as being that powerful and that magnetic to the point where you now have to change your whole personality to mirror mine? And by the way, when I'm talking about power, like what is power? Let's talk about that. Power is your sense of magnetism. So, what kind of things do you attract? Are you really good at attracting promotions at work? Are you really good at attracting positive attention? Are you good at attracting friends? Have you ever had somebody that's like jealous of your friendships? They literally get mad when you hit it off with somebody or when you fit in. Like that's happened to me before. I've had people get mad if I have like friends that are white. Have you ever been made fun of for that? Like having friends that are all white or maybe like hanging out with people who are just they don't fit the same stereotypes as you. So basically like having multicultural friendships. Have you ever had somebody get jealous of that? Well, it's because they're really jealous that you're more powerful than them when it comes to attracting friendships. And by the way, as an exotical, I never recommend only having one friend or not having any friends at all. The only time that I've talked about being isolated or alone is for a temporary period. So, for example, if you're moving, maybe you just cut off a narcissistic friend group or something, maybe you're kind of doing a reset. I think then it's okay to be alone, but I have never on this channel promoted isolating yourself forever and never having emotional support. No, you want to have emotional support. That's really important. And so, part of why some women get jealous of your friendships is they're jealous of the fact that you have an emotional support system. Have you ever been around somebody that is jealous that you have a good relationship with your mom and dad, or maybe, or you had a father figure, for example, or maybe you get along with your sisters and maybe they're estranged from their sisters? The reason she's mad is because you have more social power than her. You're able to magnetize people who treat you well. Human beings are created to have relationships. That doesn't mean romantic. I'm not saying you have to do that. But I do think that we are social creatures, and that's why everything we do has a social aspect to it. You guys know that one of my passions is sociology. I love talking about this. I can talk about this for hours. But when it comes to women who are jealous of like your friendships or family relationships, well, why are they jealous? They're jealous because your life is literally going to be better than theirs. Like in their mind, this is what they're thinking. They're thinking that you have a lot of exciting things to do. Because think about it, what kind of friends do you have? Like in my case, part of what I like about my friends is they're always down to explore the city or like, I don't know, just go to new places. We go to new restaurants together. Even like with working out, I love having an accountability partner. Like me and my friend, we literally did 10 miles the other day. So just random stuff like that. Having a sense of companionship without needing a man. So, having enough friendships and enough love, you want to have multiple sources of love. Do you see how it all kind of ties back together? So, the women who are jealous, they're jealous of your power, but they're also jealous that you have multiple streams of validation because friends are supposed to validate you, by the way. Your friends are not supposed to try to check you or like, they just tell you what to do, they tell you what you're doing wrong. That's not a friend, that's actually an enemy. But a lot of women, they get jealous when exoticals have friends because that's a source of love. That's a source of companionship. So now you're less likely to be male centered because you're not viewing men as the main source of excitement in your life. What causes women to be male centered? It's lack of power. Usually, the most powerless women are the most codependent. Why is it that the most content I hear on YouTube talking about, oh, you have to try to chase these hypergamous marriages or whatever, you have to sit around and wait for a guy to pick you, you need to shop at Zara, whatever. Why is it always people who feel like they are at the bottom of society? Why is it those types of women who are chasing after men the most? Well, it's because those women don't have multiple sources of power. They don't have beauty as a source of power. They don't have thin privilege as a source of power. They don't even have health as a source of power in some cases. They don't have family support as a source of power. They don't have any other areas where they feel powerful or respected or loved. And so they feel like the only way to get that source of consistent love is through a man or through having a child. Let's talk about that. Why does nobody talk about how some women have children because they just want to be loved? That's it. You literally just had the child because you just wanted to have a free source of love. You wanted to have a free source of unconditional love, which really doesn't exist, by the way. Because just because they're your child, it doesn't mean they're going to unconditionally love you. If you abuse that child, eventually the kid's going to realize it once they get older. But there are women out there where they have children because they want to have that source of love or because they want to finally feel powerful. So that's another interesting dynamic that I don't see other creators talking about. Women who have babies so they can finally feel powerful over somebody. She finally wants to feel like the alpha female. She wants to finally feel like a boss bitch. The only way she can feel like a boss bitch is by having kids that she can order around. She has kids where she can tell them what to do, or, like I see a lot of women saying, "Oh, I want to have kids so I can train them and I can like tell them how to be like me and I can tell them how to live." And it's like, okay, well, were you able to successfully do that with yourself? Because if you're not even successfully able to do that yourself, what makes you think that suddenly you're going to be a fucking perfect parent? I mean, if that's not delusion, I don't know what is. But I do see a lot of women out there where they have all these kids because they're trying to have multiple sources of power. Have you ever met women who are broke as fuck and then they just keep having kids? They keep having kids by a whole bunch of random guys or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, why is she doing that? Well, because now she's got multiple sources of power because she's got multiple kids. So now she feels powerful. Or maybe she feels powerful over the baby daddy or whatever. She feels like she can use the child as a pawn in her manipulation scheme. So everything that we do in this life, every decision we make is somehow connected to attaining more power. And generally speaking, people get jealous when you are more powerful than them. So when it comes to social power, oh, also, I want to talk about social media power as well. Have you ever had somebody where they literally get jealous that you are creating a social media page? It's like, damn, you have more followers than me. I haven't even created my page yet. And you're already jealous. I haven't even created the account yet. And you're already mad. You're already telling me it's going to fail. You're already talking about how the algorithm has changed or I'm not going to be in the algorithm. It's like, have you ever seen that type of person where as soon as you tell them something or as soon as they see that you start something new, they instantly start talking about how it's a bad idea? And that's projection. That's a form of projection. It's like, no, you can't start a jewelry business. No, you can't succeed on Instagram. No, you can't succeed on TikTok. You can't succeed when it comes to your beauty. That's why you're projecting it onto me. And another thing that I noticed when it comes to being an exotical is people will try to compare you to other exoticals. They'll compare you to someone lighter than you, someone more white passing, somebody with a smaller nose, etc. And then they'll try to put you down because of that. So they're making power into a competition. They're creating a hierarchy of power. And by the way, they're exposing their own internalized colorism, texturism, and featureism when they're doing that. I feel like I'm talking about so many different topics in this video, but it's fun to kind of jump around sometimes and like talk about how all of it relates. But yeah, generally speaking, people get jealous when you are more powerful than them. And so what they'll try to do is they'll try to bring up somebody that they think is more powerful than you. And even if that's the case, first of all, you can't really measure every source of power. You really don't know what every person's source of power really is. You don't. So even when they make these videos and they're like, oh, the Rothschilds are the most powerful people in the world, you don't know that. You actually don't know that. They might answer to somebody else, or there could be other families where those families have power as well. So the women who are at the bottom, they have this mindset where it's like another person's power takes away from mine. And that's a scarcity mindset. She's a scarcity mindset bitch. She's a scary ass bitch. She does not understand abundance. And so she thinks that power is a limited resource that only a few people can attain. And that's actually false. Everybody can have a sense of like autonomy. Everyone can have a sense of independence if they really wanted to. And just because something is more difficult, it doesn't mean that you can't do it. So again, that's another inferiority complex. If it's hard, then I can't do it. If I have to fight for it, then I can't do it. Some women get tired of fighting. You know, they've been spending their lives fighting with their family members, fighting with men, fighting with beauty standards, fighting with their weight loss journey, fighting with their health journey. I mean, this bitch might as well be a fucking warrior. She has spent decades battling back and forth with every aspect of her life. And so for some women, they just get tired of fighting. They're tired. And so they're mad that you have energy. Have you ever met an energy vampire? What makes somebody an energy vampire? Why do they want to do that? Well, it's because they're tired. She's tired. She needs energy. She doesn't have a source of internalized energy within herself, so she wants to take it from you. So that's why she's an energy vampire. It's because she spent her whole life fighting. She has no more energy. Her energy has been drained by men. It's been drained by colorism, texturism, featureism, racism, capitalism, etc. Everything in this world has she's allowed all those things to drain her energy versus knowing how to get an internal source of power within herself. So she doesn't believe in herself. If she doesn't believe in herself, if she doesn't love herself, what makes you think that suddenly she's going to believe in you as a friend? And this is exactly why I talk about hater archetypes versus friendship archetypes. So, and by the way, I see people literally selling hater archetype quizzes online now, which is crazy. I've never heard anybody say the phrase hater archetype until I said it. So, I mean, that's wow, I'm flattered. But no, this is why it's important to know your hater archetype versus your friendship archetype. So think about who your biggest haters are. Is it your family members? Is it friends? Is it people from a certain city? I've noticed that part of my hater archetype, sometimes it's like small town women. So women where they don't really travel much, they've never lived outside of their small town, or maybe they never moved outside of their home state. So whenever I talk about my experience, they'll be like, oh no, that's not true. And it's like, how would you know? Have you ever been anywhere outside of where you live? No, you haven't. You've never lived anywhere else. You never moved across the country. So it's like you don't know my experiences. But it's very important to think about what your hater archetype is. Because knowing your hater archetype, that gives you a sense of power. Knowledge is power. Who is your hater archetype? That will help you to know who to avoid. Do not work with, like, part of the reason I didn't move to a certain city is because when I went to that city, I noticed that a lot of the women in power in the workplace were my hater archetype. So I literally avoided moving to the entire city because I knew that once I got a job, I would have to deal with my hater archetype as the boss. So that's something to think about. For the Exoticals, when you're applying to a job, the manager at the job, is she your hater archetype? Because if I had to choose between having a manager that's usually a hater and then having a manager where I get along with them, I'm going to pick the one where I get along with them. And by the way, you don't have to tell anyone what your hater archetype is. Don't tell anyone because they're going to assume they're going to say that you're stereotyping or you're racist or fat phobic or whatever. But keep your hater archetype a secret, and then all you have to do is do not be friends with those types of women. Do not hang out with them. And you don't have to be mean to them or anything, but it's like, don't tell them your plans. Because your hater archetype, haters want to take away your power. That's their entire goal. You know, that's why they're gossiping about you. That's why they're trying to expose you or whatever. It's because they don't like that you have power. They don't want you to get recognition. They don't want you to be seen in a positive light. And so that's why they're doing everything they can to try to ruin your reputation. People who try to ruin your reputation, that's a power thing. They want power over how you're being perceived. And I know some people might be thinking, oh, well, the Exoticals, you guys have talked shit about people before, or you've had enemies before. Yeah. And I'm not saying that we haven't. And you know what? I don't have a moral code that I try to follow. I don't have to prove to other people that I'm a good person. I don't have to try to prove to others that I'm a perfect person or, that I always do the right thing. Right and wrong is really subjective. Who gets to decide what's right and wrong? Who gets to tell me what's right and wrong for my life? Nobody. Because I'm the boss. So that's where religious power comes in. I've noticed that some people they try to use religious power or spiritual power as a weapon against others and then they'll be like, "Oh, you're going to have bad karma," or, you reap what you sow. So like cause and effect is going to cause you to be cursed. And it's like, "Well, that's what you believe. You are the one who's a slave to karma. You're the one who's a slave to trying to prove how good you are to others. Why play fair in an unfair world? This is not a good girl channel. This is not a religious channel. This is not a spiritual channel. This is not, I don't believe in, oh, if you clap back at somebody, then now you're going to be cursed or now you're going to have bad karma. Oh, you have to be nice to people who are mean to you. You have to turn the other cheek. You have to like love your neighbor as you love yourself. I do not teach that on my channel. I've never supported those types of talking points because that's just not how the world works. That's literally, people don't do that to you. So why would I give people the gift of me being nice to them all the time and then it's not reciprocated? No, I go where I'm celebrated. I choose to practice selective empathy. So that means that I only have empathy for people who show empathy towards me. I will only stand up for and be loyal to people who are loyal towards me. I'm not just going to give out my energy. The only people who make these talking points of, oh, you have to be loving towards everybody, energy vampires are telling you that because they want you to love them even after they've abused you. They want you to constantly give them your energy. So that's all they're trying to do. They're just trying to soak up your empathy because it gives them a sense of power. Have you ever seen those TikTok videos where women are complaining online about how nobody wants them? They're really fishing for compliments. They're energy vampires. So they make all this victim content. No man wants me. Nobody likes me. All the light-skinned people are racist. These women think they're better than me. They think their skin tone makes them better than me. They think their hair texture makes them better. Okay, that's a victim mindset. That person is fishing for compliments. They're posting that content because they want people to comment and say, "Oh no, but you're so beautiful. Oh no, you're way prettier than the other person." That's what they want because that gives them a sense of power. They don't have multiple sources of power. And so they're jealous of the power that they don't have. Have you ever noticed that? People only come against the privileges that they don't have. Meanwhile, that same person will be secretly seeking after that same privilege. I see a lot of people talking shit about billionaires and millionaires and celebrities or whatever, but if you were to hand them Beyonce's bank account, they wouldn't complain. If they became a billionaire, if they won the lottery, if they went viral and became famous, or if their music popped off or whatever, they wouldn't be complaining. So people in general are very hypocritical and they only fight against the power that they do not have. If they were handed that exact same power tomorrow, they would take it gladly. So the thing that I talk about on this channel is not hating power. I just feel like a lot of people have a bad relationship with power. They think that power equals evil. They think that the more powerful you are, the more bad you are, and the more evil you are. Society has stereotyped power as being something that always involves exploitation. And I understand, because we do live in a capitalist society. But again, that's still a scarcity mindset. Being powerful equals being a bad person. No, that's not true. That's not true. You can attain sources of power without having to hurt others. Like, if that's your moral code, is you don't want to hurt others. And by the way, I will say that's unrealistic. Expecting yourself to never hurt other people is extremely unrealistic because that's impossible. It's impossible for you to never do anything wrong. That's impossible. Sometimes you hurt others just by walking in the room. Sometimes you hurt others just by being pretty or just by having a social media presence or, you hurt somebody else's feelings by not choosing to date them. You rejected this guy and so now you hurt him. So not hurting others, that really is unrealistic for the most part. But I just feel like as Exoticals, I'm really glad that we've learned how to have multiple sources of power. We've got beauty, we have our status, we have our own secret little corner of the internet where we can discuss our experiences. And by the way, what kind of power do you want and why? So, like in my case, I care about power because power gives me freedom. So, for example, let's say I have a lot of money. Okay, well, now I have the power to walk out of my job. So now I have freedom. Now I have more time. I can buy back my time. I don't have to work an hourly job because, I've got the money that gives me options. Power gives you more options. So think about it. The women who are beautiful, the women who have good personalities or whatever, they have more options. They have options when it comes to dating, when it comes to friendships, because they have a good personality. They have options when it comes to jobs. They have options on social media. They can make beauty content. They can make personality based content. Um, so that's another thing to think about. Like, because in my case, I do care about having options. I like being able to pivot because if one thing fails, I can just move on to the next thing. That's why I talk about like having multiple sources of income because if you get fired from one job, guess what? You still have your business on the side. So that might hold you over or it makes it less urgent for you to try to chase after something else. Whenever you're not powerful, you're a chaser. Okay? Beggars can't be choosers. So you're either a chooser, which is the powerful one, or you're the chaser. So it's always the powerless women who are chasing everything, constantly chasing after men, constantly chasing after upholding certain beauty standards. Meanwhile, you're the powerful one. You have multiple ways to be beautiful. You can be beautiful with makeup, without makeup, with a wig, without a wig, with your hair done, without your hair done. So you have more options. So that's why people say, oh, it's easier for you. Yeah, when things are easy, it's because you have more ways that you can achieve that goal. You have more options. But people get jealous when you are more powerful than them. They get jealous when people listen to you. Have you ever been around somebody who's jealous because people listen to you? I swear, that's really a thing. People get jealous because whenever you talk about something, people follow your advice or, maybe you speak up during the meetings and people actually they want to do what you're saying. People get jealous when you have fans. They get jealous when you have people in your corner. That's a huge trigger for most women because women who feel powerless, a lot of times they also feel isolated. So, have you ever been around those people where they get mad if they're the only black person in the room? So, as an exotical, you're already not unambiguous. So, you don't have that same fear because it's like you never fit in unambiguous spaces anyway. So you're able to kind of flow in and out of non black spaces because you already had that fluid identity, whether you wanted it or not. And so for some people, they're afraid of being isolated. They don't like being the only dark skinned person or the only black person or whatever, because having people around that looks like them, it makes them feel like they have more people in their corner as opposed to being by themselves. So that's another thing. People, they get jealous when you are more powerful than them. They get jealous when you fit in with different types of people. Have you ever met somebody where they have to rely on things like code switching? What is codes? What are you talking about? I'm already multifaceted. I'm already multicultural, sis. I don't have to code switch any. I don't have to put on a fake personality or put on a fake person. Let's look up the definition of the phrase code switching because I already know people are going to try to argue in the comments section, so let me shut those people up. Okay. Code switching in black culture is the practice of adjusting one's language, dialect, tone, or even physical appearance and demeanor to fit into white dominated corporate or institutional spaces. Okay, so I don't have to change my entire physical appearance. When I wake up in the morning, even when I was working a 9 to 5, I was not stressed out like, oh my God, how can I look as white as possible so I can survive this 9 to 5 job? Oh my God, how can I talk? How can I quote unquote sound white or try to fit in with white culture and hobbies so that I can survive? For some women, they're in survival mode. That's what it is. They're in survival mode. And by the way, don't even get me started when it comes to dating, because a lot of content is really just for women who are in dating survival mode. So they have to spend all their free time learning about the types of hobbies that old white men like, such as golf. They'll be like, oh, white men like golf. Okay, so now I got to spend 10 hours studying golf. And, Hispanic men, they like the World Cup. So now I got to look up all these stats, or I have to start watching soccer, even though I've never watched it before. I have to do all this stuff so I can hopefully get the attention of this non black man. But everybody is seeking power somehow. So if you want to know what kind of power a woman is seeking, look at who she dates. Whoever she's dating, that's who she wants power from. That's whose power she wants to associate herself to. So does she date white men? Does she date black men? Does she date rich men, middle class, doctors, lawyers, athletes? Whoever she's dating, that shows you who she seeks power from. Also, what kind of babies does she want to have? And what kind of babies does she avoid having? So, for example, I see a lot of people saying don't birth black men. Well, why are they saying that? Well, it's because they associate black men with like being powerless, etc. I don't really have a strong opinion on that, but that is something to think about. And that will show you how a woman seeks power. What kind of babies does she want to have? What kind of men does she date? How does she dress? That also shows you what type of power she's seeking. However you dress, that tells me what culture you are submitting to. So if you dress corporate, you're a part of corporate culture, or you want to be a part of corporate culture. Like, and by the way, I'm talking about how you dress like outside of work or whatever. So not because you're just getting paid to dress like that, but in general. Actually, as a matter of fact, what kind of jobs is this woman seeking? That also tells you what type of power structure she wants to associate with. So one's not better than the other. It's not like a bad thing all the time. But that's just a good way that you can psychoanalyze people if you want. Think about it. What social circles does she seek to be a part of? Does she want to hang out with all ghetto girls? Because if so, that means that she wants to seek power from being ghetto. She feels like being ghetto is a sense of power. So being violent or whatever. Like, have you ever noticed how people threaten you? How do they threaten you? Do they threaten you with a lawsuit? Okay. So she views the court system as a form of power, and so she wants to utilize that power over you. She's associating herself with the court system. So she really believes in it. She believes that the court system is just, and she thinks that, that gives her a sense of power. So that's why you have some women who threaten to sue you, and then you have some women who threaten to fight you. Her power comes from her fists. She is using violence as her source of power. Or you've got some women who gossip about you. Gossip is where she gets her source of power. So she'll make up rumors. She'll try to smear your name or whatever, because that's how she feels powerful, is via talking shit. But as an exotical, I feel like one of your sources of power is having a fluid identity. So whether your fluid identity comes from how you look, maybe you have a unique blend of features, or maybe it comes from your actual race, like you are mixed race, you're biracial. Or maybe it comes from your culture, kind of like your cultural background. Maybe you have one Mexican parent, you've got one African American parent, or whatever. All of those things can give you a sense of power, because now you can easily flow in and out of several different cultures. So you don't have to like rehearse what you're going to say as much. I've just noticed that a lot of monocultural people, they have to rehearse everything. So they have to rehearse how to talk white, how to like go on a date with a guy who's white. It's viewed as like a really big deal in monoracial and monocultural spaces. That's viewed as a big deal to kind of cross over. Also, when it comes to exoticals who are dating, maybe you date occasionally, or maybe you get money somehow from some guy that likes you or something. I have noticed that when it comes to exoticals, one of the power sources is definitely in the dating arena, because exoticals are viewed as a prize in the black community. I also feel like non black men who do date women who are black tend to prefer the exoticals of the black community. I shouldn't even have to prove that, but if you do want me to prove that, be sure to check out some of my older videos, because even the white men that they pedestalize, most of those men are actually with exoticals. They're with women who are not unambiguous dark skinned with broad features and 4C hair. So, all these women where they kind of put them on a pedestal, like Jasmine Tooks, for example, she's mixed. She has keen features and she has a non-black boyfriend. Nara Smith, who they are currently making fun of for having a child who has cancer. I'll probably make a video about that eventually. But Nara Smith, who's married to that white guy, a lot of people pedestalize that relationship. But that man, he's not with a dark-skinned black woman with 4C hair. So a lot of their examples of hypergamy, they don't really have examples of unambiguous women with their natural hair being hypergamous. That's more of a YouTube coping mechanism. They have to create AI photos of women with 4C hair and dark skin in order to convince their audience that like that's what they're going to attract. But people get jealous when you are more powerful than them. So as exoticals, you're always going to be more powerful than somebody, just based on your phenotype alone or based on your race alone. Now, is that right? No, of course it's not. Of course it's evil that we live in a fucked up racist society, but you cannot help how you were born, though. So other people, they live off their privileges. They use their money, they use their beauty. Everybody else is seeking after the soft life. So why is it that suddenly, because I'm an exotical, now I have to suffer in order for you to be happy? No. You're not going to do that shit to me. You will never convince me to suffer in order to please you. Anytime somebody gets mad at your power, they're really mad at society. They're not just mad at you personally, but it's like, okay, that's not my fault that you do not have knowledge on sociology. That's not my fault. So just because you didn't know how society works, just because you didn't know the underlying motives of the people that you're around, that's not my fault. You don't get to be mad at me because you did not have the knowledge on how to navigate an unfair world. And by the way, I don't have all the answers. I'm not trying to make it like I'm just so perfect or my life is perfect. Your life is never going to be perfect, no matter how privileged you are. You're always going to have problems because this world in general is not perfect. But I see some people, they'll be like, oh, that's not fair. This person's a Nepo baby. Okay, you're just jealous because your parents are broke as fuck. You came from a dusty mother and dusty father. So you're mad because you're just jealous of that person's parents. That's what it is. You're jealous of their family background. So instead of getting jealous or mad, maybe you should learn how to navigate the world as somebody who comes from dusty parents. Everybody has some sort of disadvantage in life. So I think some people are mad and they just don't want to accept their disadvantages. And it's like, if you have a disadvantage, that's fine, but you have to learn how to navigate it. You can't just sit around and complain or just sit around and like live your life as a slave because that's what your parents did or that's what somebody else did. Just because you come from a certain place, it doesn't mean that that's all there is for you. And so I think some people, they have this mindset of my past determines my future. So if my parents were poor, I'm going to be poor. If my parents were unattractive, I'm going to be unattractive. If my parents were dysfunctional, I'm going to be dysfunctional. Those people are not critical thinkers. They just kind of follow along with what their parents did. And that's how generational curses keep on going. It's because you have all these people who are just not very smart. And so they just follow the same path that everybody else around them followed. And they won't admit that they want to follow the exoticals. So instead of them respecting us and actually listening to us and learning from us, no, they don't want to do that. They'd rather just be like prideful, basically, and they'd rather convince themselves that they're somehow morally superior. But in reality, that's really just going to keep them stuck. The way that you attain more power is by learning from powerful people. I mean, you have to. You have no choice but to sit down, shut up, humble yourself, and learn. That's what school is, right? You're learning from people who are smarter than you. Teachers. You're getting experience by working these jobs and you have people that are the boss of you. So I think a lot of people, they don't want to admit that exoticals are their boss. They don't want to admit that I'm their boss. They don't want to admit that I'm the one determining the direction of their talking points. They don't want to admit that the exoticals are their standard of beauty, their standard of living, their standard of a fluid identity, their standard of blackness. They don't want to admit that the exoticals are their standard of black excellence. So I think for some people, they stay powerless because they're too prideful to learn from the powerful people. They don't want to admit that even powerful people still have skills. Even a privileged person might still have beauty, or she might still have some business knowledge or whatever. So a lot of people, they just want to they want to blame every success on luck. Like, oh, you're just lucky. Oh, you're just a nepo baby. Oh, you're just light skinned. You're not pretty. You're just light skinned. In fact, you're not even light skinned. You're a bleacher. So they want to come up with an answer because that answer makes them feel better. If they can like downplay your success, or if they can downplay your privilege somehow, that's a coping mechanism. But the way that you stop being envious is by admitting that you want to be like the person that you're envious of. So you have to learn from them. And a lot of people who have inferiority complexes, they refuse to learn from the people they're jealous of. They refuse to admit that they're jealous of anybody. Because we all know that in certain communities, being perceived as jealous, oh my God, that's the worst thing ever. That's the worst thing you could be perceived as. But I've learned to use jealousy as a tool. Jealousy is like a compass, it tells me what's important to me. And have you ever noticed that, like, the people who become jealous of you, usually these are friends or family members where you used to do some unhealthy activity with them? So, for example, the main person that's jealous of your weight loss is the person that you used to go out to restaurants with all the time. It's always the person that you used to smoke with or drink with. That's the person who gets jealous when you stop smoking and drinking. They're mad because they feel left behind. They feel like they can't be a part of your world anymore. They feel like they're not on the same page as you anymore. And I say this all the time, a lot of people want you to do good, they just don't want you to be better than them. So they want you to be pretty, just not prettier than them. They want you to have a fun life, just not more fun than theirs. They want you to be smart, just not smarter than them. They want you to be educated, just not more educated than them. That's why they tell you don't go to college, don't finish high school. You should just drop out. Going to school is a scam. You don't need to get your real estate license. You don't need any of that. No, all of that's a scam. They're telling you that because they don't want you to have more certifications than them. They don't want you to have more job opportunities than them. But when I think about power, I just feel like power is social currency. So, yes, your hair length is a form of social currency. Your hair texture can be a form of social currency. Your nose, your eyes, your lips, the way your face looks, your body, how healthy you are, all of those things, pretty much anything that is stereotyped in a positive way, is a form of social currency. And so some people are born with social currencies, and then there are other social currencies where you get to control what it is. Like, you have a choice to finish high school. You have a choice to not do drugs. You have a choice to like be healthy or to not become obese. So I think that people, they get too caught up on what you're born with versus not, and it doesn't matter. As long as you get what you want in the end, that's all that matters. As long as you're able to attain the end goal, which in my case is living a soft life, as long as I get to have that goal achieved, then I'm happy. And by the way, another thing that happens too is people don't understand what the soft life means. Like, they're just following the social media definition, or maybe they're following like the trad wives or whatever, and they think that's the soft life. So this is why I've made those videos before where it's like, what does the soft life mean to you? So, like, for me, the soft life means I don't have to work a 9 to 5. I get to work for myself doing what I love. It means that I'm at a healthy weight. It means that I am decentered from men. So I'm not over here chasing after a man, being a pick me, being in a hypogamous relationship or whatever. So I think that once you learn what the soft life means for you, like once you define that for yourself, then you can start working towards attaining that. So let's say you had as much money as you wanted and you had as much free time as you wanted. What would you do with your life? Like, what does the perfect day look like to you? I want you to think about somebody where you stereotype them as having a soft life. So Sade just popped up in my mind. You guys know I love Sade. The reason that she pops up in my mind as having a soft life is because she's pretty, she's natural. She doesn't try to follow a whole bunch of like beauty trends. I don't see her getting a whole bunch of like surgeries and like, I don't know. She is famous, but she doesn't have as many people invading her privacy as somebody like Beyonce, for example. So she gets to enjoy the good side of fame, and I'm assuming she has money. She gets to enjoy the positive side of fame while escaping the negative side. And I know her life is not perfect, but think about who you think has the softest life. It could be a celebrity, it could be somebody that you know, or you can also think about the time when your life was the most soft. So, when did you have the happiest time of your life? When were you the least stressed out? When were you the most carefree? That's your version of the soft life. Like in my case, I've noticed that ever since I started living a softer life, something changed in my personality. Like I'm less anxious. I don't have as much social anxiety. Um, I'm naturally more carefree. I don't fear embarrassment like women who live a hard life. It's always the women at the bottom who have the biggest fear of embarrassment. So those are the women where they're scared of people gossiping about them. They're scared of their reputation being ruined because they're still kind of working towards getting power in that area. But once you already have power when it comes to your reputation, once you've already attained a soft life, there comes a point where nobody can take it away. So, what's your standard for a soft life? What are the top 5 things that you need in order to feel soft? Like in my case, I need to live alone. Okay, so if I were living with like 10 roommates right now, I would not feel soft. I need privacy. If I did not have any privacy, that would feel weird. I would feel like I'm constantly being stalked or something. That just doesn't sound soft to me. Like feeling like I'm being spied on all the time, or like, I don't know. That sounds horrible to me, actually. Um, so that's something to think about. What is the best case scenario for your life? What are the top 5 things you need in order to be happy? In my case, I need my health. That's actually the number one priority in my life because if you don't have health, then you're dead. So like nothing even matters anyway. So having my physical health or taking care of my health as much as I can. So even if that means I can't upload a video that day or I have to stop working early because maybe I don't feel well, being able to do like self-care, so having access to go into the doctor, the dentist, or whatever, having access to like healthy foods and stuff, being able to get things checked out, getting my blood work done if I need to, all of that is very important. Not feeling like I have to fight just to be visible, like having a sense of visibility, but also maintaining a sense of privacy. That's one of the biggest things that makes me feel soft. So I don't have to be the most popular or famous or anything like that, but I do notice that I need a sense of visibility. So, like being able to have this YouTube channel. This YouTube channel has been very healing for me. It helps me to feel like I have a voice. It also is a sense of validation. It's like a sense of micro validation or whatever. So, just having a community, even if it's just online, that softens my life. Being able to hang out with the Pretty Girl Club and like talk our shit in the Discord and stuff. So, what sources of power make your life feel soft? Being educated, that's one of the best things I've ever done in my life is going to school, finishing high school, finishing college, graduating college with honors. That is something I'm very proud of. And it's not because, oh, I think I'm better than others for going to college. No, everybody doesn't want to go to college. But when I think about my inner child, when I think about what I used to fantasize about when I was a little girl, I always fantasized about going to college. So that's another way to tell what your standard is for the soft life. When you were a little girl, what did you fantasize about being when you grow up? Like how did you want to dress? What kind of lifestyle did you want to have? Because when I used to play with my Barbies, I always had the Barbie that looked like me. And then, like, she was always in college. That was always the game I was playing when I was a kid. I didn't play with babies and pretend to be somebody's mom and then, like, roll the baby around in a stroller. That's not what I did as a child. When I was a child, I always played games where I'm in college. I would play games where I'm a teacher. So I would line up my stuffed animals and then I would, like, create a little board and then I would write stuff on the board and pretend like I'm teaching the stuffed animals. That's what I did as a child. So, what games did you play when you were a kid? Did you do a lot of playing house? I didn't really play house that much. So it makes sense that as an adult, I'm decentered from men. I'm not, stressing about, oh, I didn't get a guy and have a house and have a baby with a stroller. I didn't really play games like that. So I think part of your view of the soft life is how you were socialized. And I think another part of it also comes from within. What do you daydream about the most? Like, what's in your imagination? So, as an adult, I have a lot of daydreams about like traveling or wearing cute outfits. I love just browsing the internet for different cute outfits and stuff. I don't necessarily buy them, but what do you like looking at on Pinterest? What do you like browsing? Are you constantly browsing cars? Maybe that's a part of your version of the soft life, is having a really nice car. Maybe you've always dreamed about living by the beach, or you want to live in a small town. Like for some people, they want to live in a small town. They want to live on a farm and do like homesteading, or they want to have their own garden. So, are you one of those girls who grew up playing outside and you were always picking flowers, and like maybe you liked having plants growing and stuff? So, all of those things are things to think about when it comes to the soft life. I'm not following a bunch of dusty ass bitches on the internet who think that the soft life has to revolve around a guy. Oh, well, being a trad wife, being a hypergamous trad wife to a white man, that's the soft life. No, that's your soft life. Oh, well, just being super religious, or constantly meditating 24/7 and having all the crystals and all that, that's the soft life. No, that's your soft life. So one is not better than the other, but like, I respect my own individuality. I respect my own standards when it comes to the soft life. You know what keeps popping up in my head? Going on a walk to Trader Joe's. That's another thing that I associate with the soft life. Just having the leisure time to be able to walk. I associate walking with luxury. Because guess what? I don't have to rush. I have an abundance of time. So yes, I get to walk to the grocery store and I get to browse the grocery store. Like sometimes I actually have just walked into the grocery store and I just look around and then I don't even buy anything, because I associate having free time and being able to browse. I literally associate that with the soft life. Being in a rush equals survival mode to me. If I feel like, oh, I have to hurry up, and I just associate rushing with like the times in my life that were the most dusty, because when I was in survival mode, of course I was rushing to get the bus, rushing to class, rushing to the Uber, rushing to drive to work, rushing to hurry up and get off, rushing to meet a deadline or something like that. So in my case, I feel like another part of my standard for the soft life is being able to like control my time. So that's powerful to me. So your soft life standard, it's all based on power. What kind of power do you want? The power over your own time, power over where you live. You get to control what state you live in. I live in my dream city. So do you have a dream city? Do you have a dream country? Do you have like a dream vacation? Where would you be living the softest life? I think that's something that a lot of creators don't talk about enough. They're too busy just creating all these aesthetic videos of like matcha teas and frozen yogurt and stuff. And it's like, okay, maybe that's your soft life, but different women have different standards for themselves. I don't really like matcha like that, honestly. I think that if you're going to drink matcha, it needs to have a lot of sweetener in it. But for some people, that is the soft life, and they love the Pilates and they like going to yoga and stuff. So for the exoticals, I want you to think about that. What area of life makes you feel the most soft? Like, think about your weekly routine right now. What soft life activities have you done in the last 30 days? What soft life activities will you be doing over the next 30 days? Because it's always the dusty bitches who have no power. It's always those women who don't have anything on their calendars. They're trapped in their apartments. They're trapped in a cubicle. They're trapped at the call center. They're trapped waitressing or doing some job they hate. If you like doing those jobs, that's one thing. But for a lot of women, they're working jobs they hate. They're in a relationship with a man they hate. They had kids that they didn't even want. They spent their money on some bullshit that it didn't pay off for them. So, what kind of power do you need to have a soft life as an exotical? Luckily, we're very good at this. I feel like exoticals are the standard of a soft life. A lot of the images on Pinterest and stuff that you're going to look up, it's going to show an exotical doing something to be soft. So, you know what just popped up in my head too? One of my favorite soft life memories is when I went to the park and I had on an all pink outfit and a matching pink yoga mat. And then I just sat on my yoga mat and then I just like did my little workout. But a lot of people are jealous of exoticals because they feel like we have easier access to a soft life. Um, People get jealous when they feel like we have more social power than them. And also, power is not always about numbers. Like, you can be smaller than somebody in terms of your following. You could be like making less money than somebody and still be more powerful than them. That's what I've realized over the years. Because have you ever started off at a new job? You're literally the lowest paid in the company. You're just the front desk person. And then the manager is already jealous. It's like, wow, I have less money than you. I literally have less of a position than you in this company, yet you're still mad. Okay, that's true power right there. A lot of people are jealous of the exoticals because we have a lot of potential. Have you ever been around someone who's jealous of your potential? That's really what that is. So even though you have a lower job than them, even though you might have less money than them or whatever, you still have the potential to become more visible. You have the potential for greatness, basically. So a lot of women who are jealous of you, they're really jealous of your potential. And that actually makes me think of the whole wig thing as well. People are jealous of the potential of how pretty you would look with your wigs or with your makeup or once you lose the weight, once you move out of the hood. They're just jealous of the potential of what you could be. You should also get some hobbies as well because most women are boring. And so having hobbies that actually adds to your personality. Your personality is a source of power. Your personality can be used for social climbing. So if you have a hobby that you love or you have some sort of passion, it just makes you more interesting. It makes you more fun to talk to. And also, you're going to be able to connect with other people who have that same hobby. So that's why you see a lot of dusty women. Their only hobby is watching baddies and smoking blunts or whatever. So the only women that they connect with are women who do the same thing. So, different types of hobbies will open different doors. So, that's something else you can think about too. What kind of hobbies do you want to have? When you think of the most leveled up version of yourself, what kind of hobbies do you think of? Like, have you ever heard of somebody where people complain that they have no substance? Yeah, women with no substance are women who have no hobbies, they have no passions. They don't have anything interesting about themselves. They just work and come home and they just watch TV. They watch other people living their lives. That's all they do. They eat, sleep, and fuck and buy lace fronts. That's it. And by the way, this is why I recommend that all exoticals have hobbies. I also think all exoticals should be on social media because you automatically have privilege on social media. If you don't believe me, go watch all the black TikTokers and they will tell you how you have more privilege on social media than they do. So I think that whatever your hobby is, you can start a social media page based on that hobby. You can start an anonymous page where you don't even show yourself and you just talk about random stuff. I mean, that's really what the exotical space is. I was never expecting my channel to cause other people to start channels. That's not even why I came on here. But once I came on here, other girls from the community, they felt confident enough to start their own channel and they talk about their experience as an exotical. So you can do stuff like that. But I just think that having hobbies and passions and then like sharing it on social media, it's going to be such a healing experience as long as you're willing to block and delete people who like talk shit. And this is also why I tell the exoticals to start anonymous pages because then you're not opening yourself up to monitoring spirits. If you're one of those girls that has a lot of stalkers and haters, then just do a channel where you don't show your face or just start an Instagram where you don't show yourself. It's just like your artwork or it's just you like crocheting or whatever. And then just build up the page, start making money off of it if you want to. Now you've got a whole other source of income and you're doing your hobby. I have not seen not one channel before mine that was a sociology channel talking about power dynamics in the black community and discussing pretty privilege. Nobody did that. But I decided to just, make all of my passions. I just wanted to have a channel where I could talk about all these different things and then kind of tie them together however I could. And so I feel like on social media, there really is a lane for everybody. And the only people who say that there's not are people with a scarcity mindset. It's like, no, you can't start a page on crocheting. No, you can't start a beauty page. You can't have a sociology page. So that's why you're saying other women can't do it. So that ties back to my talking point where I say that people want you to do well, just not better than them. So that's why they're telling you, oh no, don't start a page. Don't do social media. Oh, it's oversaturated. Well, yeah, it's oversaturated for you because you're a basic bitch. There's nothing special about you. So, yeah, that's why it's oversaturated because you're just a copycat and everything that you've done, somebody else has already done better than you. So, yeah, for you, it's oversaturated because you don't have anything unique about yourself. But for the exoticals, I just feel like social media is a place where you can thrive. It's a place where you can make money. You don't have to go on YouTube. You could go on whatever platforms you want, although I do recommend YouTube because YouTube is the highest paying platform. So, if I had to rank the platforms, YouTube is the highest paying. My favorite social media platform is actually Patreon. Um, but I feel like I wouldn't have a Patreon if it weren't for YouTube because YouTube pays you per view. So you literally get a consistent monthly check from YouTube as long as you're a monetized channel. TikTok, they do have the creator fund on there, but the views are worth a lot less on places like TikTok and like short form content platforms. So that's something to think about. Like how can you attain more of a sense of power? How can you make your life softer? Well, you can do a hobby and you can talk about that hobby. You can talk about pretty privilege. You can talk about being an exotical. You can talk about doing hair, doing makeup, whatever. Another way that you can become more powerful as an exotical is by increasing your network. So, are you friends with a lot of people? Like, let's say you're mixed, let's say you're Blasian. Do you have a lot of connections in the Asian community? Do you have a lot of connections with people of different cultures or people who work different jobs? Networking is extremely important, and that's a part of the soft life for me. So, like in my case, actually, let me look at my calendar. Let me see what I have going on. So recently I did go to a social media event, probably within the last 30 days. But what is on your calendar that's going to help you with networking? Oh, as a matter of fact, tomorrow I have a young professionals meetup that I'm going to with my friend. So, do you see what I mean about how networking, it should just be a part of your lifestyle? So, like, I'm not making this shit up. I'm not talking as somebody who's not doing the shit. So, as an exotical, who do you want to hang out with? What types of environments do you want to network in? What kind of people do you want to network with? Doctors, lawyers, old people, young people, professionals, hairstylists, people in the beauty industry. That's something to think about. And also, networking is more important for exoticals because a lot of us have people who try to sabotage our jobs. So, we deal with a lot more jealousy than people who are at the bottom. So, we have to have a really good network and we have to have like really good connections so that if we do get fired from a job or if somebody sabotages us, guess what? We have a whole network of other friends or connections where we can work somewhere else. And also your network, those people become your clients. Like if you're a hairstylist, for example, I don't know, if you're like a videographer, a photographer, your network, your network is full of people that you can like work with. You can collaborate with those people. Have you ever been around somebody where they're so like socially anxious they can't collab with anybody? Well, collaboration that can help you grow. It can help you to get more business. So I think that's another thing that exoticals can use to gain more social power. We have more connections naturally. We have like a fluid identity already. So you can use that fluid identity to build your network. So guess what? You got kicked out of the black community or your black friends think you act white. Okay, cool. Well, good thing you already have a whole other network of friends that are white then. So nobody can really take your power away from you if you've got multiple sources of power, multiple friend groups, multiple business opportunities. You're able to travel to multiple places. I never want the exoticals to put all their eggs in one basket because A lot of other women have a scarcity mindset, and it's because they put all their eggs in one basket. They were relying on swirling, or they were relying on divesting. They relied on the black community. They relied on only black women to be their friends, or they relied on only living in a certain neighborhood. I think that the benefit of having a fluid identity is that you naturally are more likely to be popular. That's what it is. You're more likely to be popular. You have multiple streams of success that you could choose from. Like in my case, I mean, I told you guys, I've done so many different jobs. I've worked retail jobs. I've worked at like Old Navy, Target, all these random places like coffee shops. And then I've also worked professional jobs. And I wouldn't have had all those opportunities if it weren't for the network that I built. So, like when I was in college, that was actually when I got my first PR job. And I got that job because I was asking questions. You know, I was friendly with the staff members at my college. And so I was able to find out about all these different opportunities that related to like my major, or I don't know. It was just, I had so many random things that went in my favor because I had a network of people. And this is why I say that I like hanging out with leveled up women. I like hanging out with women who are doing shit. I don't want to be around a bunch of lazy ass, bum ass bitches. I don't want to be around that. Where all they do, they just want to eat 24/7. They just want to sit around, watch TV. They have no energy. I don't like that. I want to be around other women who are also exciting and they have different passions. And they don't have to have the same passion as me. So, like, I have some friends that do music. I have friends that do, like, they create jewelry, they sell their bracelets online and stuff. So, my friends don't have to have the same passions as me, but I enjoy being around women where I can learn from them. I like all the little business tips that I get from my friends and stuff. Like, I have learned so much from the women I'm around. And I think a lot of people, they stereotype other people and they think, oh, I can't learn from them. Well, that's exactly why you're at the bottom. That's why you stayed at the bottom. It's because you didn't want to learn from anybody who was different than you. You only wanted to learn from somebody with your same traumas. People view the world through the lens of their own traumas. And I think that one of the biggest disadvantages is only seeking after people who are relatable, because it's like, okay, what makes someone relatable to you? They have to be black? What? They have to be dark skinned? They have to be what? And it's like, I've learned how to learn from people who are completely opposite of me, completely different. Maybe they came from a different country. Maybe they have a different family structure than me. I don't know. Like, I've learned how to be open-minded and it helped me in terms of networking. So I think that's a really good skill that the Exoticals can have. And I think that the fact that other ethnicities of people are more drawn to you, that's another thing that can help you to build your network as well. Also, volunteering. I think a lot of people, they overlook volunteering, and especially like in underprivileged communities, a lot of people think volunteering is like a waste of time because they're in survival mode. So again, when you're in survival mode, you don't have time to volunteer because you are the charity. And I'm just being honest, that's what it is. Usually, the people who don't ever have time to volunteer are the people, they are already in the position of being the charity. But I think if you're an exotical and you've already gotten out of survival mode, you can start volunteering. So, like in my case, I told you that I actually volunteer in the black community currently in my city. So I don't want to hear anybody calling me racist, self hating, or anti black. No, bitch, I probably helped the black community more than you ever have or will. But volunteering, it helps you to meet other people who are not in survival mode. You are meeting and socializing with people who have more free time. These are people who have more abundance in their lives. They have an abundance of time, they have access to a little bit more money. So that's why they can be a donor to these organizations, or they're people who are passionate about the same thing as you. So, you know, these are also people who love helping animals, or they love helping the black community, like in my case, you know, they like helping women, young women who have been abused or whatever. They like helping those women. So I think that volunteering is actually very overlooked because a lot of people, they're in such a scarcity mindset that they've never even tried it. But once you donate to certain organizations, like you're getting access to galas now, you're getting access to different events that they have. So, for example, if you volunteer at the local theater, you might get free tickets to the opera now. Like maybe you're volunteering at the opera, you're volunteering at the theater, you volunteered at a certain fair or a certain event. Now you're getting free tickets. Now you get access to go to that concert. Like I actually heard of people who would volunteer to help with certain concerts and stuff because then they get like these VIP tickets or whatever. So there are all kinds of different volunteering opportunities and you do get something in return. You just don't get money in return, but you get other perks. And those perks help you to socialize with different people. Also, as an exotical, you can join your local chamber of commerce. So the chamber of commerce is basically like they help the businesses grow. It's basically the business community of that city. So especially if you live in a big city, if you're in New York, you're in DC, you're in Boston, you're in Los Angeles, Chicago, joining the chamber of commerce, you're literally going to be surrounded by business owners, you're surrounded by people who are politically active or they're like, I don't know, they're less likely to be dusty. And I'm talking about both men and women. So that's how you can kind of get out of these dusty environments. As an exotical, you don't even belong in dusty environments anyway. Nobody stereotypes you as being in dusty environments except for women who are jealous of you. Those are the only ones that stereotype you as being in dusty environments. But other than that, society as a whole does not stereotype you as being at the bottom. You're already being stereotyped as living the soft life. You know, people are already expecting that from you anyway. So, luckily, you don't have to worry about walking into these rooms and feeling like you don't belong. You belong in the Chamber of Commerce. You belong in all of these financial meetings and stuff like that. And also, I hear people online saying things like, oh, well, you don't need an education. Okay, just because you don't need something doesn't mean you shouldn't have it. Yeah, I don't need to be a millionaire. I don't need to be pretty. I don't need to have a flat stomach, but I still want those things because those things are a privilege. And so, when it comes to your privilege stacking journey as an exotical, I want you to have as many privileges as possible. Just because you don't need something, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. And do you see that dusty mindset? Oh, all you want to have is just basic needs. Everything's focused on just basic needs. It's not about needs. It's also about wants. It's also about stacking those privileges. It's about having more power over your own life. Like having an education, that gives me more power. It gives me options. So it's hilarious how, I'll have people that talk shit about this YouTube channel, and it's like, baby, even if I had no social media, I could go back to working in finance. I could go back and work in finance. I can go work within the field I was already working in. So that's an option. It gives me the confidence to actually step out and start a business because I still do actually have an education to fall back on. Also, the only people who talk shit about education are people who are uneducated. Anybody who is in college or who has gone to college knows that the majority of skills you learn are not even in the classroom. Like all of my networking, when I went to college, they literally had people coaching me on how to do interviews. Like they have so many random helpful classes and expos that are not even during, it's not even a part of the curriculum, but like simply walking around the college campus, there are opportunities. They had random job fairs going on at my school. So it's like, I'm not even looking for a job. Maybe I'm just randomly walking to class. And then I happen to walk past a building and there's a sign that says job fair. And they've got people trying to recruit me. So just being in a setting where you're leveling up, like that's why I talk so much about college on this channel. It's because I just feel like college is a great example of a place where you have opportunities. And I do think it's a privilege. I do think that having things you can fall back on, like an education or even your beauty, your beauty is something you can fall back on. Your fluid identity is something you can fall back on. And I will never look down on somebody who has a fallback identity or they have like a plan B or whatever. That's good. That makes it harder for you to fail because you got so many different things going for you. So I find it interesting how on the internet People talk about having everything going for you, but when it comes to something like your education, they're literally telling women to not educate themselves. And that really ticks me off because I would never support somebody who doesn't want women to be educated. The only people who say that are uneducated women who feel outshined, or it's men who want to be able to control you. They want you to be financially dependent on them. So, of course, they're going to say, don't get educated, don't get a certification, don't learn IT, don't learn coding, don't do programming. And when I say education, I'm not just talking about college because, I think college, it is one of the main ways to get educated. It is probably the most popular way. But there are other forms of education too. There are other courses you can take. You can get your A plus certification in IT. I think is it the A plus or the Comp TIA? I forgot what it's called. But it's like they have IT certifications you can get. I mean, you can take a first aid class for God's sakes and become a babysitter. I mean, the concept of education, I'm never going to down talk somebody who wants to better themselves. And I see a lot of people online, they'll be like, oh, well, I didn't go to college and I make six figures. Nobody said that you can't make six figures if you don't go to college. That's not the only reason to go to college is to make money. People go to college, like in my case, going to college, it made me more multicultural. It helped me to discover my talents and gifts. I did not know how to edit. I would have not learned how to edit, and I would have never had this YouTube channel had I not gone to college and done that as a hobby. Like when you're in school, you get introduced to new hobbies. You're encountering all kinds of people from all over the world because people travel the world to go to college and get an education. So I think it's about more than just how much money can you make. You're in survival mode. So yeah, of course you're only obsessed with the money part. Like, okay, as long as I make six figures, then I'm good. Okay, well, some people want more than just six figures. Like in my case, yeah, I want money and that's nice, but I also want experiences. I want friendships. I want multiculturalism. I want to have a network. I want to be inspired by the speakers. Some of the most inspiring moments of my life have come from being in college. Like when I tell you, I literally almost cried walking on my college campus because, well, in my case, it was my dream school, but I almost cried because at the time I was very into history. And so just thinking about the rich history of the people who came before me who were walking on those same steps as me, like that was so overwhelming and so inspiring. Like when I went to college, they had different museums and stuff in the area as well. So one of the assignments was to go to the museum. So that sounds kind of boring. Like, why would they tell us to go to the museum? But the museum that I went to, I still vividly remember that museum to this day. That was a life changing experience simply going to the museum that I went to. And I would not have even heard of that museum had I not been in a college classroom with my favorite professor at the time. It was just a whole thing. So I just feel like everything you do in this life has a domino effect. So people only focus on the bare minimum, like, oh, well, going to college, I already have money, so I don't need this. And it's like, no, it's not about just the college part. It's about the domino effect of what happens in college, the experiences you have in college, the things you're introduced to in college. I would not be a coffee drinker if it weren't for college. I mean, that could be good or bad. It could be good or bad, but that's where I got my first job as a barista. That's where I learned about coffee and like all the different levels of coffee and like how much energy you get from each cup of coffee. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But when I am making this content, it's not just about being pretty, for example. A lot of people will be like, oh, well, I still have a good life and I'm not pretty. And it's like, okay, well, just because you're okay with being ugly, that doesn't mean everybody else is. So, yeah, you may have a great life and be pretty. And, I could still have a good life and be ugly as well. But since I have the option of pretty privilege, I'm going to choose that option. I'm always going to choose the privileged option versus the underprivileged option. So that's the point I'm trying to make. It's not like I'm putting college on a hierarchy. It's more so that if you are an exotical watching this and you have access to finishing high school or whatever, there are so many countries around the world where women are uneducated. So I will never tell women to not educate themselves. If you are in a first world country, if you have access to high school and finishing high school, you should finish. because there are countries all over the world where a lot of women don't even have a fifth grade education. They can't read. The fluency that they have in their own language, they don't have that because they don't have access to education. So that's always going to be a privilege. That's going to be one of the many privileges that I will always encourage you to have. And then people say, oh, well, no, you're going to get into debt. Okay, well, you go into debt for everything else. You go into debt just so you could go pop bottles at the club. You're literally using credit cards. You use credit cards so you can buy wigs and weaves. You use credit cards to pay for your braids. So what are you talking about? Oh, where you're going into debt. I'd rather go into debt for an education or starting a business or whatever, as opposed to going into debt buying stupid shit. And also, we live in a capitalistic society. Bitch, you're probably going to be in debt anyway. You're already going to be in debt. It's so funny because I knew this one girl from my hometown, and she used to talk shit about like me going to college or whatever. And it's like, girl, you didn't finish college yet. You have more debt than me total. You have over 30K of consumer debt, which is way worse than having less than 30K in student loans because the interest rate on your credit cards is way higher than my interest rate for my student loans. So you didn't finish college and you still have more debt than I have. So I think it's also laughable that people assume that if you go to college, you're automatically going to be in a bunch of debt. No, that's 100% dependent on the college you choose. It depends on what major. Are you going to grad school? Do you have any scholarships? Are you getting grants or not? So everybody's financial experience in college is completely different. It's completely different. But having access to education, that's a form of power. Also, when it comes to hobbies, like as an exotical, you don't have to stick with the same hobby forever. Like, you don't have to have a one dimensional identity. So, like in my case, I will try out different hobbies for like a few months. And then if I like the hobby, I will keep doing it. And if I don't like it, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop doing it and I'll just never go back to it. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.